You too can step out of your full-time job, get your full-time salary super fast, super easy if you just follow my strategy and my secrets. These are the promises of so many online business programs and business coaches because it sells. We want fast, we want easy, yet are they really being truthful with how they made their first 100K and how you can make your first 100K? I'm not sure. And of course, no one really tells you how they did it until you buy their high price program, right? But I'm here to tell you that I did make my first 100K in my first year of business. And I am actually going to tell you how I did it. And I guarantee it's not what you expect. So let's dive in. A little bit of background. I spent the first 15 years of my professional career as a consultant, getting an MBA, doing business strategy for big Fortune 500 names like Nike, and leading teams. So I came into business with a whole host of background education and a whole host of privilege. I jumped into full-time entrepreneurship in 2021 after side hustling as a life coach for 3 years. I leapt out, basically leaving a toxic workplace, not knowing exactly what I was going to do, but feeling confident I could cobble together something to make money, but I knew I just needed to get the hell out and start my new business. In the first few months, I got my first few coaching clients, but in my first year of business, I only made 30K. I was really proud of that, but that wasn't going to be enough. She's got bills to pay. But Jessica, in the beginning of the video, you said you made 100K in your first year of business. You said you were going to tell us how you did it. I did promise that. So drum roll, please. I made my first 100K by doing contract consulting jobs. I used my past corporate experience to get subcontract consulting gigs through matching platforms, through connections, friends of friends that were looking for someone with my background from my prior corporate jobs. Not necessarily what I was doing today. I was taking and just riding on my corporate experience to get in some of those corporate contracts. They were big, they were part-time, and they funded my business for the first year and a half while I did the heavy lifting of building my book of business, making connections, honing my point of view for my own business on my own brand. You know, when we look at like what I did the first year, 30K under my own business, 90K from corporate consulting gigs. This is the secret that no one tells you. It takes time to build a book of business. Other things I did to make money while my business was growing. I had fractional roles, including some what I would call doing the work job. So in my second year of business, I was doing strategy for one of my clients, stepping into essentially a fractional chief operations officer role. I was spending 10 to 15 hours a week working for the client. It was repeatable, reliable revenue. Sure, that means it wasn't passive, but you know what? It was stable. And they're my client a few years later in more of an advisory capacity. I did contract coaching again for a bigger company, learning the basics of how to run that kind of business. I also transitioned in the consulting roles I was in and those corporate consulting roles, I started doing more chief of staff work. So for the first 2 years of my business, I was doing kind of hands-on, run the business type of work. I needed the time, I needed the money, I needed the ballast in order to build my book of business, to build my audience, to build the framework for a more lifestyle-friendly consulting business that was more focused on advisory and less focused on kind of really part-time work. Things they don't tell you about that make growing a business easier, the secrets that they all have. When people leap out and they've had their first 100K in their first year, I bet one of these things has happened. Number one, they are selling their existing service to their existing network. So like whatever they did in their corporate role, they're just doing it fractionally part-time on their own. They're doing it instead of being a W-2, they're doing it as a 1099, doing it for the same type of industry. And I guarantee you that most of those initial contracts came from their initial network. I talk about this, what happens when you've depleted your network, which is why everyone tends to have a really great year in consulting the first year and then kind of peters out in the second. So that video is linked. Another thing they don't tell you is that a lot of times these people have a second source of income. They have other revenue coming in. They have a partner. I have a husband with health insurance. This is really important to relieve the stress of needing our business to generate cash right out the gates. And also, some of the people that made it really fast, that monetized really quickly, they had some kind of existing relationship with someone really influential who spotlighted them, who took them under their wing. Maybe they had apprenticed for a creator before and they had connections, they had relationships, they had been spotlighted. These are some of the advantages that no one really talks about when they're like, it's easy to get your first 100K in your first year of business. It's hard. Having some of these advantages or pre existing accelerants out of the starting gate is really helpful and no one really talks about it. So, what was easier for me to grow? Quote unquote, time for dollars work. Everyone poo poos on doing time for dollars work and getting your hands into the business. But you know what? That was stable revenue for me. Longer term commitments also really worked for me. Not trying to like get as much money as possible. And from like single sessions, I was like, I will work on a repeatable basis at potentially less dollars per hour because I needed the stability. And what took longest to grow was any of my leveraged offers. So digital courses, group programs. I didn't have a list. I didn't have an audience. You see my YouTube channel now, as I'm recording this, I have 150 YouTube subscribers because I didn't have that audience. So I was selling services and that worked for me. So if you are coming into your business and you aren't selling your existing skills to your existing network in just a consulting 1099 capacity, if you don't already have an existing audience or are porting people over from an existing business, if you don't have a second source of income or another job or a partner that can support you and bankroll you if you're not living on savings, and if you don't have someone that's going to spotlight you and kind of pull you up with them, that's okay. It's challenging to build a book of business. So I want you to release the pressure. Release the pressure from your business to have to make money right out of the gates. It takes time for clients to hear about you, have a problem that they need you to solve, to have the money and the time for you to solve them, and then doing the work and then referring your friends. Like that takes time. Like it may be about a year of like a client life cycle from when they first hear about you to when they can tell someone that they love your work. In the meantime, as we're stabilizing our business, and let's assume you aren't coming in with those pre-existing accelerants, what do? I want you to encourage you to release the pressure from your business by supplementing. Contract consulting or subcontracting gigs. Again, who is in your network? Who do you know? There are platforms that actually match people with skills to business owners that need skills. What about part-time or flexible work? There are people who would love to have you in their business. They can't afford full-time work, and you maybe don't want full-time hours. So part-time hours. Another idea is a quote unquote bridge job. A bridge job is a job where you're still putting in good effort, but it doesn't require all of the mind space. The kids call it quiet quitting these days. But really, if you're able to do good work at a job for maybe 6 hours a day, spend 2 hours of that time working on your business, and then really clock out at the end of the day without it weighing on you, that might give you the mental bandwidth to start building that audience, making those networking connections. And finally, having some retainer or long-term clients. Maybe this isn't at the hourly rate you would want. We don't want to get trapped in the golden handcuffs, but it's nice to have some regular, reliable revenue, even if that means you quote unquote have to do some work. All of these things are designed to let you not have to sell out of the gate, build some authority, not have to take every single client that comes in the door, even if they're not the right fit. This allows you to build your audience, build your network, build your expertise, and do it without the pressure to have lots of money coming in through the door. That's what I did because even with all of my 15 years of experience, I didn't have the network. I didn't have the base of my ideal clients. I didn't have my expertise built up, codified in a way that made it easy to sell. It took me 2 to 3 years to build that up. So I released the pressure and had a job. So let's talk about how I really made money in the business. In my first year, corporate consulting gigs and fractional COO gigs made up 71% of my income. The next year, that dropped to 44%. What offset that was a growth in my branded coaching and consulting business and my first group offer, my first leveraged offer. In 2023, my consulting and fractional COO work dropped to 32%. Again, still stabilizing, but we're less reliant on those past life corporate consulting gigs. And then in 2024, I am no longer taking straight up corporate consulting gigs. I am fully branded under my own name. I still have some fractional COO retainer work, but I'm doing that under my brand and not as a subcontractor. My leveraged offers have also increased. They've gone from 11,000 in my first year to 25,000 in the second year I did it to on pace for close to 50K. So that has gone up substantially as well. Now, the bulk of my business is still services, and I'm really excited for that. But you can see that over the 3 years of building my business and into year 4, I have steadily reduced the reliance on outside sources of cash because I couldn't build a group offer without an audience, and that takes time to build. I couldn't sell advisory services and get referrals and do the coaching and consulting work I wanted to do without growing an audience, building up brand awareness, and getting referrals. So I relied on those stable revenue sources from my previous network, weaned those down as I built up the rest of my business. That's my real secret to how I made 100K in my first year of business. For you in your business, don't think you have to come out of the gate and make all your money. It may take time. It probably will take time. It took me 3 years to be able to sustainably make the income level I wanted and needed to make without supplemental sources out from my previous history. It takes time. Release the pressure valve. Look at alternative ways to fund your life as you're building your book of business. That means you can market the way you want, take the clients that you want without so much pressure. All right, if you love this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.